Is there a day 3 quarterback that we should be excited about for dynasty purposes? Is it Carson Strong or someone else? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Magdziuk.
Welcome into the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, everybody. I'm Kate Magdziuk. You could follow me on Twitter at FFBallblast. And of course, as always, I am joined by Marcus Mosher. You could follow him on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Be sure to give the show a follow, hit that subscribe button wherever you are listening to your fantasy football podcast so we can get you prepped for the NFL draft, your rookie drafts, and all the excitement that is to come. Because Marcus, it's peak off season. And we're about to wrap up our quarterback discussions today with some pretty interesting names.
Interesting is a very nice way to put it, but yeah, that's a good way to enter the show. So we've talked about all the other quarterbacks so far. You can go back and listen to our shows on Matt Corral and Desmond Ridder and Sam Howell and Kenny Pickett. Today we're going to be just quickly going over 3 other guys that are likely to be drafted, I don't know, somewhere between the 3rd and 6th round. And let's start with Carson Strong. This is somebody who his value, Kate, all over the board. Some people really like him. I saw a couple of people today on Twitter rank him as quarterback 2. There's some people in Dynasty that like him quite a bit, and they're ranking him over players like Matt Corral and Sam Howell. But what did you see in Carson Strong, and do you think he has any long-term Dynasty value?
In short, no, I don't think he has any long-term Dynasty value, but I mean, he's a fun guy to watch. Carson Strong out of Nevada, nice size, 6'3", 226 pounds, pure pocket passer. So that is what he is going to project to at the NFL level. He is not mobile whatsoever, which we know is pretty important for NFL quarterbacks in this day and age in fantasy football. When you have some of the top quarterbacks in the league that are dual threats, Carson Strong, unfortunately, because of that and because of concerns regarding a significant knee injury history, I think he's going to fall down draft boards. And I think he needs to be in the perfect situation with a good offensive line because of that lack of mobility that might limit his projection at the NFL level.
I mean, we could start by saying the good things about him too. I mean, you're right. The knee injury is the biggest thing. I think there's going to be some teams that fail him because of the knee stuff. It's very serious. But assuming that's okay, he's a pretty good down the field passer. Like, he throws with a lot of touch. He's not afraid to stand tall in the pocket. It's just, yeah, you're not getting a super mobile quarterback. You're not getting somebody who is going to be all that dynamic with the football. But we've seen quarterbacks that have been statues before be successes in the NFL. I'm not saying he's going to be one of them, but
it's not an eliminator from the conversation, but
I just think the
something to
ceiling
be
is quite a
aware
bit
of.
low. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Justin Herbert. The guy that I compare him to a little bit, Kate, is like Nick Foles. Could he be a Nick Foles level quarterback in the NFL on the right team? I could see that.
I think that's absolutely a fine comparison. And anytime we make these comps, I look at, if best case scenario, this player ends up like player X, what does that look like for fantasy football? And doesn't look good. But
no,
that's not to say that he can't. He's not a capable passer, because though he is a pure pocket passer, he's pretty good at it. Ranked 4th in the FBS in pass attempts, 8th in passing yards, 7th in passing touchdowns. Like, he got it done. And I think
I just don't think he's anybody you're going to be excited about in Dynasty owning, right? Like, I think there's a chance down the road that he becomes a capable NFL starter, and he's one of these quarterbacks that's good enough to feed the ball to his number 1 receiver and number 1 tight end. And that's probably the extent of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and I mean, this is sort of the projection I have for Carson Strong, just in terms of his career trajectory. He's not a guy that I think is going to come out and necessarily win a starting job, but I do think he's going to be drafted as a backup,
Mhm.
and he's going to be somebody that gets an opportunity to start, whether that be from injury or outplaying the guy ahead of him. The team that I wrote down that I'd kind of be interested to see, especially with the fact that they've been mocked to be taking a wide receiver in round 1. What do you think about the Washington Commanders?
Oh, that's an
Decent
interesting
offensive
one.
line.
Yeah, I like that one. Because I do think
Would
as
play
long as
behind a
the
fellow
offensive
Carson.
yeah, as long as the offensive line is competent around him, I think that's the type of team that would make sense, right? You've got a really good receiver in Terry McLaurin. You've got an underneath guy in Curtis Samuel. You've got Logan Thomas at tight end. Yeah, I think he could be a competent level NFL starter. What about the Colts? What if he is a 3rd round pick by the Colts and he sits behind Matt Ryan for 2 or 3 years? Could he down the line be a solid quarterback for Indianapolis? I don't think that's a bad spot either.
I don't think that's a bad spot. I mean, does it checks off all the boxes? They've got lots of playmakers. They've got a solid run game too to take some of that pressure off of, the entire situation there. I think that my biggest question there would just be, is there going to be a lot of opportunity there for Matt
Maybe not.
Ryan? We don't necessarily know uh, what his relationship with that team is going to look like, but it sounds like he's fitting the mold of a Colt much better than Carson Wentz did. I definitely see Matt Ryan finishing his career there. It's just a matter of how much longer does he play. He's 36 years old,
Mhm.
but I could see him have another 2 or 3 years in him, especially behind a capable offensive line where he's hopefully going to take less hits, and just be able to have a nice balanced offense like that.
All right, so he's currently quarterback 6 in rookie drafts. Not all that surprising because he probably is going to be a late day 2, early day 3 pick. But just let's kind of slot him in to the current quarterback ranks. So um, Sam Darnold is currently quarterback 34. Would you rather have Darnold or Strong going forward?
I'd rather have Strong.
Okay. Drew Lock, quarterback 33.
Ooh. Ugh, God, Marcus, why are you doing this to me? I still think I'd take Drew Lock there.
Okay. Davis Mills, QB 29, drafted, I think, around the same spot that Carson Strong is going to go. Actually, I think very similar kind of passers coming out of college. Davis Mills or Carson Strong?
Ooh, kind of interested in Davis Mills there.
Yeah,
We
I
saw
am
him
too.
have a pretty fantastic rookie season, low key. And I think the fact that we haven't heard the Texans really buzzing at all about quarterback. They said it, and I don't think anybody believed it, but they said they like what they saw out of Davis Mills, and I think we were all just kind of like, yeah, okay.
I believe it.
I believe him now.
There's a times last year he looked like the best rookie quarterback, like for games. So yeah, that was really just an excuse for me to talk about Davis Mills, who I think is criminally undervalued right now. One last one, and this one's really depressing. Carson Strong or Jordan Love?
Oh, that's sad. I'm gonna still go with Jordan Love. I think we haven't seen a big enough sample size, in my opinion, to completely write him off. He's not going to win a starting job from Aaron Rodgers, and we saw one game where he didn't look like the guy, but
didn't play well.
it's not to say that he can't be the guy. I just don't think we've had a big enough track record of him not fitting the bill.
So Carson Strong is somebody that we're not really making a priority, but still we're valuing him as quarterback like 34, quarterback 35 in that range. I think landing spot's going to be really important here and how high he's picked, right? If he all of a sudden is a 2nd round pick to Washington, like you mentioned, I think you're going to see his value rise quite a bit. But if he falls into day 3, probably because of that knee, that's when I'm going to get concerned. So keep an eye on where he gets drafted. I'm sure we'll talk about him post-draft, but Carson Strong, somewhat interesting quarterback prospect out of Nevada. All right, we're going to talk about two other players, Kate. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including the odds for this week's Masters Championship, which I watched just about every single hole yesterday. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information needs, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Kate, another quarterback that we should talk about, Bailey Zappy, who was at the Senior Bowl. The stats are incredible. He had an awesome year this year for Western Kentucky. Not overly big, 6'1", 215 pounds, but is there anything to like here?
There's a lot to like here about Bailey Zappy, but with as much things that there are to like, there are similarly many questions about how his game will necessarily translate to the NFL level. Bailey Zappy was a fantastic prospect, just broke so many records. He just broke all of the FBS records, basically. Played at Houston Baptist, then went to Western Kentucky, and just absolutely crushed pretty much every metric that you can crush.
Yes.
He led the FBS with nearly 6,000 passing yards, 62 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. In that span in 2021, had the 5th highest passer rating among NCAA quarterbacks. He had the 12th highest adjusted completion percentage, 19th biggest big time throw rate. So he's putting his team in a spot that's excellent. But the questions about Bailey Zappy, how is he going to play behind an NFL offensive line? Because he essentially had the ideal situation. He played behind one of the best offensive lines in the FBS, only saw a pressure rate of 12.9%, which was the second lowest in the FBS. So he really didn't have to deal with pressure whatsoever. And that's not going to be the case at the NFL level. The questions about the level of competition in his conference, in the do we say CUSA?
Yeah, sure. Conference USA.
Sure. Yeah. I'm trying to be cool like the cool kids. But like the level of competition there, nothing to write home about. So like, how is this? Like, we know he has maybe the upside here, but how much does that upside translate to the NFL? I'm not entirely sure yet.
Yeah, my other big concern is his arm strength. I'm worried that his arm is just below average for NFL standards. And if you're small and you have a below average arm, it's pretty hard for you to be successful. Now, I do think he's an NFL quarterback. I think he's going to be a long-term backup that is a spot starter every once in a while, and can function. Like, my comp for him that I've actually seen a couple of people have now is Nick Mullins, who we saw play for the 49ers, the Eagles, the Browns last year, and competent, right? That's probably the word I would say. You put him in there and you don't feel like it's a disaster. Is that somebody that we get excited about for fantasy? Absolutely not. But an NFL player.
For sure. And I think if he is in the right situation, maybe behind a good offensive line, like we said, there are all these qualifiers here that I hate putting qualifiers on these prospects. But, if we can sort of mimic the situations that we saw him play in with Western Kentucky, I think he could have a real shot at success. They gave him a lot of control over that offense at Western Kentucky. He was able to, kind of audible and manipulate the game plays, which, some quarterbacks, they don't get a lot of opportunities to do that at the collegiate level. And that's like a skill that's going to translate, the ability to make these defensive reads pre-snap. That's going to help him out at the NFL level. But again, it's really just the question about what is this going to look like? Because like, I don't want the lack of the big strong arm and the lack of that upside there to limit him in what he does in like the short and intermediate games. like the situation that this reminds me of is like when you had Phillip Rivers in at quarterback a couple of years ago, and then you had who was it, Jacoby Brissette come in for the all the Hail Marys because they
Yes.
knew
Yes.
he couldn't make it down the field. Like I don't want that to be Bailey Zappy. So um that's probably my biggest question. But I do think he probably in the right situation, like he's got the health, he's got I think the brains to translate to the NFL level. It's just about will his body size and his arm strength match that at the next level.
Yeah, somebody we're just not all that excited about, right? I mean, if you are in a super, super deep, super flex league, maybe, but I don't know, Kate. I don't really see it here. Nothing to get excited about. It's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I want to talk about one more guy that I actually like a little bit, and that's Jack Coan. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about Built Bar. This time of year, almost everybody has given up on their New Year's resolutions, but not us. We are sticking to ours to eat better thanks to Built Bar. Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, and most Built Bars only contain 130 calories with 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and it's not even a contest. Go to built.com and use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, Notre Dame quarterback Jack Coan, who a lot of people like. I saw Lance Zierlein from NFL.com has him ranked ahead of Sam Howell. What do you think, Kate?
I'm not rolling that far, but I think I know why you like Jack Coan, and it definitely has to come back to the fact that he's like one of the tallest guys that we've talked about so far.
Yes,
You love a tall quarterback.
Well,
That's
nice, right?
I mean, it's nice to have. You're not gonna say no. But 6'3.25" 218 pounds. Was a starter with Wisconsin before transferring to Notre Dame. And he had a good season with Notre Dame. Finished the season with 3,100 passing yards, 25 touchdowns, 7 interceptions.
He was
I think,
good. He was just legitimately
yeah,
good this season. Now, does that
he was.
translate? I don't know.
That's my biggest question here. So, um, Jack Coan, I probably watched the least out of all these quarterbacks. So, Marcus, I want you to fill in maybe my gaps in knowledge. What do you see out of Jack Coan, and does it translate to the NFL on a big scale?
No, probably not. But I think there's some things to really like. I think when he's protected, I think he can put the ball wherever he wants. I think the arm is okay. Um, I think he did pretty well when he was pressure, when he has guys around him. I thought he delivered the football pretty well. I don't think his deep ball is all that accurate. It's not really the strength of his game. I think he needs to be more in a West Coast offense that relies on him kind of getting rid of the ball quick and throwing in the short to intermediate stuff. But if you want somebody to play like in a Kevin Stefanski style offense or Kyle Shanahan, where it's a lot of play action, it's a lot of bootlegs and throwing the tight ends on the move and just being accurate, yeah, I think he's a decent quarterback. I think there's some Jimmy Garoppolo vibes here from him.
I actually, that's a nice, that word, or that player specifically, Jimmy Garoppolo, very interesting. And especially interesting here, like, don't hate me, guys. Don't hate me for this, what I'm about to say. But Jimmy Garoppolo, he has at times, and not on a consistent basis, but at times, he has shown some upside in fantasy due to his efficiency. And, whether that be efficiency from as a product of the offense and what they're generating there in terms of the run scheme and having that complement the pass, that might be the case. But maybe if you're talking like a dynasty best ball league, Marcus, we're in the middle of a dynasty best ball startup draft.
Sure.
Not a guy that I would hate trying out at the quarterback position for my best ball league.
Sure.
For those very reasons. If he ends up in the right situation, Is he a guy that I think I want to start on a consistent basis? Absolutely not.
No.
But in the right scheme, definitely could have some upside as a passer there.
Again, we're diving really deep here. We're talking about guys that you're probably, I mean, the guys that aren't going to be drafted in your leagues, that are just guys to monitor. I think the ceiling for Cohen is Jimmy Garoppolo. More likely, like a Brian Hoyer type of quarterback, right? Like a guy that's a career backup. That's
So
very
doomed to play with
mediocre.
the Patriots and sign with the Patriots 70 times before the end
Yeah,
of his
but
career.
somebody, if they play, again, not the worst quarterback you've ever seen. Not somebody that's going to be a franchise guy either, but again, we're talking about day 3 options. I just want to give one more name really quickly. Skyler Thompson from Kansas State. I actually watched him last night, just kind of watching quarterbacks to get ready for today. Really liked his game. He is incredible on 3rd and 4th down. Like if you just need somebody who knows how to play in pressure and to create chunk plays when you absolutely need them, Skyler Thompson, man. Now he's got little baby hands like Kenny Pickett, so that's a little bit of a knock. He's not super big, but dare I say some Tony Romo qualities to his game. Probably going to be
Whoa.
a day 3 quarterback, maybe undrafted, but you watch him against Baylor, who had a great defense. You watch him against LSU in Oklahoma. I'm telling you, those 3 games alone match up as well with any other quarterback's games in this class. Like he has a lot of talent. Keep an eye on him at least later on in day 3.
I like it.
There you go.
Gonna check this guy out.
All right. So, okay, we've gone through all of the quarterbacks, all the notable ones at least. One last time, who's the guy that you are going to be targeting in rookie drafts? Maybe not the guy that you have ranked number 1, but the guy that you want to draft on your team.
I'm gonna probably be rolling with Desmond Ridder, sitting at my QB3 spot right now in my rookie rankings. But just a guy that I think has so much more to offer than even what we saw at the collegiate level in terms of his mobility. Like we didn't see that unlocked to, I think, the level of athlete that he is. I think in the right scheme, he could absolutely be more heavily utilized in that regard. And be efficient while doing that. I think his rushing upside could be big at the next level if they find the right coach in terms of scheming it up. And I like his arm. I like pretty much everything about him. I think the ceiling's higher than we're necessarily projecting because of his athleticism.
I agree with you. I think I don't want to say the floor because the floor is always lower, but I think a very realistic outcome for him is like a Jared Goff level quarterback with a little bit more athleticism, right? But that type of short intermediate passer with pretty good decision making and pretty good accuracy, you get him in the right team, and you're getting a QB2 that maybe eventually could be unlocked to have something more. But that's the guy that I'm targeting because I just think he's such a big value. And I won't be surprised, Kate, if he goes higher in the NFL draft than what a lot of people are anticipating because he just checks so many boxes in terms of production, made Cincinnati into a legitimate championship contender, 3 years of production, the rushing upside, just a lot to like here.
Yeah, I think definitely could be a huge value in rookie drafts, especially with names ahead of him in most consensus rankings, like Kenny Pickett. Everybody's going after these higher name guys. Matt Corral, who I have a bit lower than consensus. I do think he's going to be drafted in general behind these guys in your rookie drafts. I think he's a guy that has a relatively safe floor who you're going to be able to draft behind some of these sexier named guys that I think poses similar upside.
I don't disagree at all. I absolutely, I think Desmond Ridder is a fantastic value right now. If you're doing drafts right now, like we are, Kate, go scoop up Desmond Ridder before his value just goes way up here over the next 3 weeks. So, that is it for today's show. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back on Monday. Matt and Ryan will be back on Tuesday and Wednesday. So if you missed their shows, I promise they are coming back. They needed a little bit of some vacation time after the long season. So Make sure you're downloading the podcast wherever you get your podcast. You can check us out on YouTube as well. You can follow the show at Locked On Dynasty on Twitter. You can also follow Kate at FFBallBlast. I'm at Marcus _Mosher. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you guys back here on Monday.